In the beginning of the parsha, where the pasuk says, "Vayomer Hashem al Moshe," Hashem says to Moshe, "Daber el Aaron, tell Aaron not to come in at any time into the kodesh," meaning to the kodesh hakadoshim. Rather, bezoisi of Yaron al kodesh, there's a specific procedure of how he needs to come in. The pasuk says, "Ksoinis bad kodesh yilbash," he needs to be putting on a special ksoinis made of linen, etc. Rashi on the words ksoinis bad explains, Magid, this teaches us that he does not serve inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the 8 garments that he serves when he's outside, because they have gold, and we have a concept of ein kateger nasas aneger, that the prosecutor cannot become the defense attorney. Rashi does not explain that point over here, but the idea is that it has gold, which is reminded of the Egel Azov. Continuing the Rashi, El Barba, rather he serves with the 4 garments, Kekoyin Hedyet, like an ordinary koyin, V'kulan Shalbutz, and they're all made of linen. Now simply, the pshat of Rashi is that he's coming to answer the fact that the pasuk is even telling us about these garments, Ksoinis Bat Kodesh Yilbash, to wear the linen Ksoinis, B'gdei Kodeshim, that these are all holy garments, and he should put them on, etc., as if it's telling us some new thing, a chidush davar, some novelty. Whereas we know that this is all explicitly said already in Parshas Tetzaveh, both the actual obligation to make the garments as well as the obligation to wear them, as the pasuk says, "Bevoyim el oyel moed," when they come into the oyel moed, "Ebegishtem el mizbeach," or when they approach the mizbeach, "L'shareis b'kodesh," to serve in holiness, "V'lo yisu avin v'meisu," so they need to make sure to wear it, otherwise they'll have an aveira and they will die, etc. So then the question is, what is being added by the command when Aaron is being told to wear these garments in our parsha? So Rashi explains that the pasuk is coming to teach us, Magid, it's coming to teach us not to enumerate the big kahuna and the command that one needs to wear them when he's going to do the avodah b'kodesh, rather that he should be putting on only these 4 garments and not all 8 garments. The 8 garments which we learned about earlier already in Parshas Tetzaveh, that Aaron usually uses them when he's doing the avodah. Says the Rebbe, however, we need to understand the term Magid that Rashi uses is usually in a case where what Rashi is telling us is not explicitly in the simple meaning of the pasuk. Rather, Magid, the pasuk, is coming to tell us an additional point in addition to that which says clearly in the pasuk. In our case, however, says the Rebbe, it's not understood. The idea that he should be wearing only 4 garments and not 8 garments says specifically in the pasuk. We also need to understand the ending of Lashon Rashi, where Rashi says, "El barba koyin barba koyin head," he only wears the 4 garments like an ordinary koyin. V'kulan shalbutz, and they're all made of linen. And the Rebbe asks, we see clearly in the pasuk that there are 4 garments. So why does Rashi actually have to tell this to us? Secondly, what is Rashi adding to koyin hedyet, like an ordinary koyin, when we know already from earlier in Parshas Tetzaveh that a koyin hedyet wears 4 begadim? What's Rashi saying? And either way, says the Rebbe, l'may nafkamina, why does it make a difference that it's like a koyin hedyet? And point number 4, says the Rebbe, when Rashi says v'kulan shalbutz, they're all made of linen. So again, this is something that says specifically in the pasuk by each one of the garments that are enumerated that it's made of bad, which is linen. So why is Rashi adding that they're all made of linen? The Rebbe says seemingly we would be able to say that Rashi is coming to negate a totally different explanation, interpretation than we may have thought in our pasuk, and that is learning our pasuk Ksoinis Bad Kodesh, where the pasuk enumerates 4 garments. One may have said, since we know already from earlier in Parshas Tetzaveh that Aaron and Kohen Gadol wears 8 garments, and they are l'chavid l'sefaris, for honor and glory. So how does it even make sense to think that when he comes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that one unique time of the year, he's going to be wearing only 4 garments and not the other 4? Was he wearing less now in his l'chavid l'sefaris? He's going to diminish now in the honor and the glory? And based on that, one would have thought, reading these psukim, that the pasuk is in fact not telling us that he should just wear 4 garments. Because obviously, of course he has to wear all 8 garments. If he wears them all year, how much more so he would wear them now? In fact, some of the Mefarshei HaTorah seem to be saying this very, very point, that they learned that the Kohen Gadol does wear all 8 garments, even on Yom Kippur. So instead, what's the pasuk saying? The pasuk is telling us that there's a certain change, a certain difference on Yom Kippur in regards to the 4 garments that the pasuk does enumerate. That is, that these 4 garments that the pasuk enumerates are different to the rest of the year in the sense that the rest of the year, the 4 garments, as said in Parshas Tetzaveh, are made of sheish. The pasuk over there says, Aksoin is sheish, mitznefes sheish, and the avnet, etc. And sheish, as the pasuk says, is sheish moshzor, which means linen that is put together of a few threads together. More specifically, it's of 6 threads of linen twisted together, and that's the way each thread is made up. Whereas on Yom Kippur, where the pasuk uses a different term, ksoin is bad, michnes bad, avnei bad, mitznefes bad, regarding these 4 garments. So in this case, the linen is not sheish moshzar, it's not threads that are made up of multiple threads together, but rather each one is an individual strand, each one is an individual thread. And this is why the pasuk is mentioning these 4 garments and putting on these 4 garments, not to tell us that you only wear these 4 garments, but tell us the difference of how these particular linen garments were made. As opposed to the other 4, which in them there wouldn't be any difference, the ones that contain gold. And this is what Rashi is negating. Again, this is all what the Rebbe is suggesting, that perhaps this is why Rashi is saying, Magid, that the pasuk is coming to teach us something else, not the way we would have thought, the way we just suggested, that the reason the pasuk is mentioning these 4 is because of the change of how the linen was made, but perhaps the pasuk is not negating wearing the other 4 garments. So Rashi says, no, what the pasuk is teaching us is that in fact he does not wear the 8 garments when he's working in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The pasuk is coming to negate the garments that he usually wears outside, all 8 garments, and over here he's really only going to be wearing only the 4 garments like a Kohen Hedyot. Says the Rebbe, but this pirush is also difficult. Why? Number one, in addition to the fact that, according to this pirush, we still don't understand the word magid. Why does Rashi have to say magid? Because at the end of the day, Rashi is still not adding anything to what says clearly and directly in the pasuk. All Rashi is telling us is he's negating a mistaken pirush that we may have thought about the pasuk. But really Rashi is telling us that we just learned the pasuk simply, and now we should start learning pirushim that are not in the pasuk. In addition to that, says the Rebbe, the ending of Rashi, where Rashi says that he wears it like a kohen hedyot, v'kulan shalbutz, and they're all made out of linen. In this case, already earlier the Rebbe says seemingly these words are extra, but now, according to what we just said, not only are these words extra, but it seems to be emphasizing the opposite point of what we're trying to bring out. It's seeming to emphasize, it's leaving room to make a mistake, that the chidush of the pasuk is in fact about the 4 garments that are being mentioned, and that Rashi is telling us that they're made of linen, but they're going to be made of a different kind of linen, which is what we said that Rashi is coming to negate according to this pirush, but it's actually the opposite of what Rashi is saying. According to Rashi, the chidush is not regarding the 4 begadim that are mentioned. The chidush is regarding the 4 garments that are not mentioned in the pasuk, that he's not going to be wearing. So the Rebbe explains, what Rashi is actually coming to answer is the question that we can have in our pasuk, is why is this pasuk specifically said over here? Why does this pasuk appear over here, the pasuk regarding wearing the garments? Seemingly, this pasuk should have said either before all of the avodas and karbanos of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, in the previous pasuk, or after the pasuk enumerates all of the avodas that had to be done while the Kohen Gadol is wearing these garments. From the fact that the pasuk says this tzivui, this command about wearing these 4 garments, right after the pasuk bezois with this Aaron is going to come into the kodesh, but par ben bakar with a young bull for a korban chatos and a ram for a korban oila. From the fact that the pasuk says right over here, we would have thought that these 4 garments he's only going to be wearing when doing these 2 karbonos, this young bull for a korban chatos and the ram for a korban oila, because they are karbonos that are specific for him, for the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. But there's a problem with learning this, because from the further psukim it's quite clear that number one, the korban oila that was just mentioned, this ram for the korban oila, is not done with 4 garments. Rather, it's actually done with the other garments, with all 8 garments. The pasuk says v'lavash es b'gadav, which was referring to all the garments that he uses all year round, as Rashi says. And number 2, we can't say that it's only these 2 that are going to be done with the 4 garments, because all the other avodos up until the oila, which is the 2 goats for the korban chatos of Adas B'nai Yisrael of the Yidden, and the avodah of the Ketores, which are enumerated after our pasuk, are also done with 4 garments. So we can't say that the reason the pasuk says over here is to tell us that it's about only these 2 things that are done in the 4 garments, because just once again, first of all, one of them is done in 8 garments, and second of all, it's not only the second one that's done in 4 garments, there are other things done in 4 garments. This is why Rashi says, Magid, the pasuk is teaching us that the Kohen Gadol does not serve inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the same 8 garments that he serves outside. Meaning to say that even though, yes, it's true that from the simple reading of the pasuk it sounds like it's that the 4 garments are going to be negay, are going to be relevant for both of these korbanos that are mentioned in the pasuk, both the chatas and the oila. Says Rashi, no, that's not the pshat of the pasuk. The pasuk is coming to tell us that he does not serve inside the kodesh hakadoshim with the 8 garments that he serves outside. Now, the korban, the ayil, the ram that's being brought as a korban oila, is going to be brought outside, and that's why it's going to be done with all 8 garments. On the other hand, the further avodas that are going to be mentioned, the sprinkling of the blood of the 2 goats and the ketores, etc., they are all done inside, or at least they're related and connected to the avodah is done inside. And this is why they, in fact, are going to be done with 4 garments. Says the Rebbe, and this itself is the reason why the garments are mentioned over here after the pasuk of Bezois Yav El HaKodesh, and not before all the korbanos, and not after the ending of all the korbanos which are specific for Yom Kippur. By the fact that the pasuk is telling us about wearing these 4 garments, the pasuk is trying to tell us that wearing these 4 garments is not because of the avodah of the day of Yom Kippur, which then would have made sense to put it either before all the avodas or after all the avodas. The pasuk is trying to say that it's specifically connected with this pasuk of Bezois Yovei Aaron El HaKodesh, with Aaron coming into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. In other words, the chidush of Yom Kippur, where he serves inside. Serving inside cannot be done with all 8 garments that he uses outside. And when Rashi says it's not done with the 8 garments that are used outside, what Rashi mainly means is not even speaking about what's happening the rest of the year. Mainly what we mean is even on Yom Kippur itself, he's serving outside with the 8 garments, but when he comes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he can't be serving with those 8 garments. Says the Rebbe, according to this, we could also understand a question, a wonder of that, and that is why Rashi does not deal with a certain question in Pshuta Shel Mikra. And that is, if, as we just said, Ein Kateger Nasa Saneger, and this is why the Kohen Gadol cannot use the golden clothes on Yom Kippur in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So why is it that outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim he does use the big days of the golden garments? And the Rebbe first deals with the rest of the year. As far as the avodah of the Kohen Gadol, the rest of the year, even when he's doing an avodah of Kapara, there we could say that the concept of Ein Kateger Nasa Saneger doesn't matter so much because that only applies on Yom Kippur. Because the whole idea, the whole theme of the day is, as its name implies, Yom HaKippurim is a day of Kapara. And therefore the avodah of this day has to be done with extra care, not to give any room for any sort of prosecution. But when it comes to the avodah of Yom Kippur itself, the question then is that all of the avodas of Yom Kippur, both those done inside and outside, seemingly should have been done not with the big days off, should have not been done with these golden garments. So the Rebbe says the explanation for this again is when we look at the pasuk of this pasuk of Aksoinus Bad, the fact that it comes after the pasuk of Bezois Yavei Aaron, that Aaron is coming to the Kodesh. By the pasuk introducing right in the beginning of the avodah of Yom Kippur, Bezois Yavei, that this is the way Aaron is going to come in through the Par Ben Bakar, etc. The pasuk is trying to teach us that the point of Yom Kippur is not about the avodos of the day, but the point is Yavai Aaron El HaKodesh, that Aaron is going to be going to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. In other words, this is what brings the kapara of Yom Kippur. What does Bezois Yavai mean? In order for going to be able to go into the Kodesh in the appropriate way, so the pasuk says Bezois, these are the conditions. There are certain karbonos, there are certain avodos, both inside and outside, like the ram for the carbon oil, for example, is on outside. But what's the point? The point of Yom Kippur is Bezois Yavai Aaron El HaKodesh. This is the main theme. The kapara is going to be mainly the fact that Aaron is coming into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And therefore it's understood that where do we specifically need to be careful of Ein Kateger Nasa Saneger? It's going to be mainly in this place where the kapara of Yom Kippur is happening, which is in the avodah that's happening inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now the Rebbe is going to say what still seems to be the problem and why Rashi needs to continue with some of the other things in the end of the Rashi. Says the Rebbe, if according to Rashi, the chidush of the pasuk of Ksoines Bad is primarily the shalila negating the fact that inside you're not allowed to wear the big days of because Ein Kateger Nasa Saneger, which means, as the Rebbe will soon explain, that we're not focusing so much on a positive thing, that this Yom Kippur specifically we need to be wearing these 4 special garments. It's more about a negative, that it's about not wearing four of the garments. So then the Rebbe says, so what's not so understood is, when we learn the Psukim in Parshas Tetzaveh, we see how careful one needs to be wearing the garments, that the avodah should be in a way of l'chavod u'lesefaris, for honor and glory, to the extent that we say hamishamish, if someone serves mechusar b'gadim with less garments that he has and he's chayiv misa. So how does it make sense that just because of Ein Kateger Nasa Saneger, the Kohen Gadol shouldn't have the full kavod and sefaris, the full honor and glory of the garments? and not even wear the normal amount of garments that he wears. And the Rebbe now adds the point which we started saying. If we would say about Yom Kippur, there's a special din, a special idea regarding the Big Day Kohuna, that Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, is wearing a different set of clothes, which is specifically connected to Yom Kippur. On this day, he wears 4 specific garments. So then it wouldn't be so difficult. Because what we'd say is, just like the rest of the year, the Torah has a din of Shmoyne B'godim for a Kohen Gadol, so too the Torah says that there's a special din of 4 garments that the Kohen Gadol has on Yom Kippur. Later on in the Sicha, we'll actually see that the Rebbe learns that that's the way the Rambam understands it. But since, according to Rashi, there is no special din or special chidush about these 4 garments that the Kohen Gadol wears, it's more about an Isser wearing certain garments, the 4 garments of gold on Yom Kippur. So then the question is, at the end of the day, it comes out that the Kohen Gadol, specifically on Yom Kippur, is wearing less garments. This is why Rashi says the Kohen Gadol is wearing the 4 like a Kohen Hedyot. In other words, the fact that the Kohen Gadol is wearing inside only the 4 garments is not the pshat that he's wearing 4 out of his 8 garments. So he's missing garments. Rather, at this point, he is being mishamish, he's serving like a Kohen Hedyot, whose number of garments is lechatchila set up to be 4 garments. Says the Rebbe now will also understand the ending of Rashi, where it says the kul and shalmutz, they're all made of linen. What's Rashi saying with this? He's not only coming to emphasize the fact that those 4 garments that he is wearing, there's no problem with them. They are in no way of prosecution because they're made of linen. Rashi is in fact telling us something much more than this. He's actually giving a further proof that when the Kohen Gadol is serving inside of Yom Kippur, he's dressed right now and he's serving like a Kohen Hedyot. How so? So the Rebbe is going to explore the avneit of the Kohen Gadol. Regarding the avneit of Aaron, the Pasuk says in Parshas Pekudei that it's made up, first of all, of sheish moshzor, of the twined linen, but it's also made up of other materials. Tcheles, argomon, telas shani, maisei reikim, all embroidered. But these are materials made of wool with different colors, etc. So this is what it says in Parshas Pekudei regarding Aaron the Kohen Gadol. Now in Parshas Tetzaveh, where the command is l'chatchila said about making the garments, there it only, about the avneit, it only says maisei roikim, that it's embroidered, but it does not say which material or materials it's made up of. Whereas by the garments, the way it's mentioned in Parshas Pekudei, it says specifically that the avneit of Aaron Kohen Gadol was made up of the 4 different materials that were just mentioned. In other words, what do we have from this? That the avneit of Aaron, the avneit of the Kohen Gadol, is in fact not made of linen. So then what does the pasuk mean in our parsha when it speaks about the 4 garments that Aaron wears, and it says about avneit bad yachgar, that he wears the avneit of linen? So this itself tells us that the begodim that the Kohen Gadol is wearing now is not the big day Kohen Gadol. Rather, he's now wearing begodim like a Kohen Hedyot. In other words, as we'll see in a minute, that the avneit of a Kohen Hedyot is made of linen according to Rashi. And therefore, when the pasuk is telling us right now that he's wearing an avneit of bad, this is because he's being dressed like a Kohen Hedyot. The Rebbe says Rashi in Pshutei Shel Mikra goes according to the understanding that the fact that the avneit of Aaron of the Kohen Gadol is separately mentioned in Parshas Pekudei, and it's not mentioned over there anything about the avneitim of his children, even though there itself it does mention the other begodim of Bnei Aaron, the other 3 begodim, is because according to Rashi, the pasuk is in fact speaking specifically. When it says the avneit of Aaron, it specifically means the avneit of the Kohen Gadol, that's made up of these few different materials, whereas the avneitim of the Bnei Aaron are in fact made differently. They're only made of linen according to Rashi. And therefore, going back to the point where Rashi concludes and says, the kul and shalbutza, they're all made of linen, including this avneit, the main point Rashi is making is, here you see that in fact he's similar to a Kohen Hedyot, because if it would have been a Kohen Gadol, the avneit would have been a different material. Says the Rebbe V'yeshloimar that this is actually one of the inyanim of Mefloim, one of the amazing ideas in Al Derech HaHalacha that we also find in this Rashi. And Rashi is in fact differs over here with the Rambam in the whole geder of the big day Kohen Gadol of Yom Kippur. So the Rebbe is going to bring 2 differences between Rashi and the Rambam, and the Rebbe is going to connect the differences as well. So the Rebbe says, the Rambam says that the big day Kohuna shloisha minin. Generally, big day Kohuna can be divided into 3 categories. There's the big day Kohen Hedyot, the begodim of an ordinary Kohen, the big days of the golden garments, the big day Lavan, and the white garments. In other words, according to the Shita of the Rambam, the big day Lavan of Yom Kippur are actually considered a separate category of garments. Not that there's an isur to wear some of the garments inside the big days of, and therefore automatically he's only wearing 4 out of the 8, but rather, as the Rambam said, it's a third category, a third type of garments. Whereas the Rashi is medayek, Rashi specifically says that inside he is mishamish, he does his work in the arba, in the 4, like a koyin hedyot, as we just mentioned before. So this is point number 1. So according to Rashi, it's not like a new third category of garments. He's just wearing the kohen hedyot's clothes. Another thing, says the Rebbe, we see a difference between Rashi and the Rambam in regarding the obligation of wearing the big day lovan. The Rambam says the avodas hamiyuchades, the special avodas that are unique for this day for Yom Kippur, are the big day lovan are in white garments. In other words, the big day lovan is a geder, it's a din in the avodas hayom, the work of Yom Kippur. The problem, of course, with this pshat is based on something we said before, that the ram for the Karban Oila, as well as the ram the ram of the whole nation, are avodas that are unique for Yom Kippur, and yet they're not the big day lovan. But again, that's the Rambam. Rambam says avodas hayom, things that are unique for this day, are the big day lovan. On the other hand, Rashi connects the obligation of big day lovan, as we said before, with going inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He doesn't, it's not because the avodas hayom, the specific unique avodas of Yom Kippur, but rather the place where he's doing the avodah. Anything that's related, done inside, or related at least to the avodah inside, needs to be done with big day lovan, because as discussed, according to Rashi in Pshuta Shomikra, the main kapara of Yom Kippur is because of going inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the other avodas of the day are only like a condition, allowing him or enabling him some sort of prerequisite to be able to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Says the Rebbe, perhaps we could say that these two ideas, whether the big day lovan are more of a negative thing, you're just not wearing the gold, or it's a positive thing. And point number 2 of the difference again, whether the big day lovan are connected to the avodas hayoim, with the avodas of the day, or it's connected with going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Says the Rebbe, these two differences we could say are linked and connected to each other. If we should learn that it's a din miyuchad, a special positive thing, that you need to be wearing this special set of white garments of Yom Kippur, which is the Rambam's way of looking at it, then it makes sense to say that it's also a din connected to the whole avodah of the day. The special, unique avodah of Yom Kippur, because just like big day kohuna generally are connected with the avodah of kohenim, so too there's a special din of the big day lavan as a detail, as a part of the special avodah of Yom Kippur. Whereas if we say that the big day lavan is more a matter of just an inyan shlili, a negative thing, you're not allowed to wear the golden garments, as Rashi says, so then it makes sense to say that this issue, the prohibition, is connected not with the avodah itself, but rather with the place of where the avodah is being done, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that is not allowing the concept of gold to come in there. And the Rebbe concludes with Acharei and avodas Hashem that we have from Rashi. When a Yid wants to bring about that lifnei Hashem to Torah, to be purified in front of Hashem, regarding oneself, regarding another Yid, bringing everyone lifnei Hashem in front of Hashem, closer to Hashem's Torah and mitzvahs. So first and foremost, he needs to know that in order to do this, what's demanded is to go in lefnim, to go in inside. In other words, to go deep inside into his panimiyus hanefesh, the innermost part of his soul. And with this koyach, he's able to achieve the kapara and the tara both for himself and for others. Now the way to go inside is that one needs to remove himself. He needs to take off those garments, the big days of that are lechavid l'sefaris, for honor and glory. As long as he feels his own honor, his own glory, he cannot really go into pnim. He cannot really get to the pnimiyus hakavana, to the inner intent. It's only when one feels himself like a kohen hedyot, like an ordinary kohen. In other words, he's not wearing the golden garments. He's wearing the big day lavan. Kulan shel butzas, Rashi says, they're all made of linen. When by this person what's shining is the union of pshitas, the simplicity, the pure simplicity. This is specifically what's enabling him, allowing him to go inside, and through that to bring a kapara and tara, not only at himself, but also for another Yid. And furthermore, v'chipar ba'adoi, he brings a kapara for himself, his family, and for all of Kahal Yisrael.